Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to English for Young Learners A1 of English Department. And today we are from Group 4, consisting of me, myself, Dina Aulia, and my friends Fatima Azara and Saida Lutfia. So in today's topic, we're going to explain and present about teaching reading for young learners. So the first parts of materials will be explained by me. So let's just get straight into it. Before we know on reading for young learners, we have to know first, what is reading actually? So here, reading is a set of skills that involves making sense and deriving meaning from the printed word. In order to read, you must be able to decode or sound out the printed words and also comprehend what we read. So, from what we see here, we can kind of conclude that reading is not just knowing the words individually or knowing how to read them, but we have to comprehend and know the meaning of it as a whole, not just, reading artinya ini, is artinya ini, not just that, but we have to know the whole thing, the meaning of this whole thing as a cohesion. Next is the three elements they may affect young second language learners reading. So from the book it says the elements that may affect it. The first one is the child's background knowledge. So has the child been reading? Have they known how to read yet? Have they known some other knowledges other than that? That will affect the learner's reading. And the second is more specific. It's similar to the first one, the child's linguistic knowledge of the target language, but it is specific to the linguistic knowledge or the target language itself. So for example, maybe the children lives in an environment where the parents or friends or family speak the target language. That will definitely affect their reading later. So the way, if they have the linguistic knowledge of the target language first, it will definitely affect them. And last is strategies or techniques the child uses to tackle the text. I think it's quite obvious. It's how they would read the text, how would they derive the meaning. They will affect their reading as well. Next is the background to teaching of reading. So reading comprehension refers to understanding and knowing the meaning and also entertainment, and those things needs higher order thinking skills. And as teachers who will teach these young learners, we have to teach them to derive meaning and also analyze and synthesize the text. And in order to that, we have to know why people read first, so we can relate to it to the teaching of reading later on. So first is reading for pleasure. So to put it really simply, it's basically reading for fun. So for example, maybe kids read comic book or visual novels or get their parents to read them bedtime stories. It will make them feel like they're having fun. It will make them feel motivated because they are having fun. They don't feel pressure, but they feel like they just do what they like, and it makes them probably relax and all those stuffs. So that's what reading for pleasure is. It's reading for fun, for entertainment. Next is reading for information. Just like what it says, so they read to get information. For example, maybe a child tries to read a recipe because they want to help their mother cook. That's what reading for information is. She wants to get information on how to cook something to help her mother. And when we get information, we get satisfied. So that's what the children will feel too. In order to get the satisfaction, they will need the motivation to do that reading for information, so they will get the satisfaction. So how do we correlate this to the teaching of reading later on? Is that we must have the elements of pleasure, entertainment, and information. So for example, maybe you can tell the children to read a tutorial on how to make airplane papers or airplane kit. They will get information from that, and they will have fun doing it, and they will hopefully get motivated by it. And for pleasure itself, we can read them or tell them to read the stories that they like and other things like that. Next is things to consider when teaching reading to young learners. So first is vision problem. So as we know, I think in Indonesia we mostly know about minus and plus, but plus is kind of for in children. So how do we know if the children that we're teaching have vision problems? So maybe you can see them like maybe in the class, if they squint a lot, if they tilt their head when they read the board, or if they read the book too close or too far. At that point, you may ask them, are their eyes feeling okay? Because their eyes might be tired or even hurt if they have this vision problem. And if they do feel that way, or if they have this vision problem, you can suggest them to wear glasses or help them by making them sit close to the board so they will read better on the board. They will read the board better, because obviously this vision problem will definitely affect their reading later on if they have vision problems. So I must pay attention to that. And secondly is configuration. So from what the book says, configuration is the makeup shape of letters. So first, we know that H, the small h, or not capital H, doesn't look like this. It's very blocky here. The word of the house that consists of HOUSE is very blocky. It might confuse or make it a little bit harder for the children to read. So we must consider this, because in a way, if they have difficulty for this, it's not really their fault. So we must ask them if they feel more comfortable reading with the configuration or with the natural shape of those letters. So you must pay attention to these two problems. And I think that's all from me, and the next materials will be explained by my friends. Thank you very much.
My name is Tagna, and I will explain about the development of reading skills. The development of reading skills are divided into two. The first one is phonics-based introduction, and the second one is literature-based approach. Phonics-based introduction is concerned with teaching children that letters can be put together to form words. The primary focus of phonics instruction is to help beginning readers understand how letters are linked to sounds, to form letter sounds correspondence and spelling patterns, and to help them learn how to apply this knowledge in their reading. Phonics-based introduction is intended to help children see the correspondence between the letter and sounds. Second one is literature-based approach. Literature-based approach is designed to help children develop an appreciation and enjoyment of literature while at the same time developing literacy skills. Literature-based reading-based approach in reading instruction involves teaching reading through exposure to literature. In other words, students learn how to analyze text by reading and analyzing text. The focus of literature-based approach is to help children develop literacy skills through having real-life literary experience. For example, teacher will ask students to read a short story or narrative text. Teachers usually focus on the importance of using authentic literature, but it will be hard for teachers to choose for the materials for real literature-based approach, because teachers often spend hours choosing literature selection as well as developing activities and evaluation that reflect the content. Next is reading in the classroom. Reading in the classroom can be conducted by doing a variety of strategies and engage learners in the reading. For the first one, a variety of strategies. Teacher can use context clues to determine the meaning or relating the reading materials with real-life situation. For example, the textbook shows what is things around the class. So the teacher will point out the things around the class, such as blackboard or table, same like in the textbook. Teacher can also teach students to the reading comprehension strategies when they read a text for the information. And next is engage learners. Engage learners means that teachers should make a learning process that can be interesting for young learners. So learners can be engaging in learning process. For example, reading aloud. Teacher will ask students to reading aloud for a short story or narrative text or descriptive text. So it will make learners interest with the materials and also engaging learners in the learning process. And that's all from me. Next materials will be presented by Fatim.
Okay, I will continue to explain the next slide. It's about classroom technique and activity. So there are many activities to choose in to apply in the class to teaching reading. So what is the aim of these activities? These activities is to improve students' bottom-up skill in reading, or recognizing word meanings, recognizing phrases, recognizing sentence structure and comprehension. So as a teacher, we need to choose the best way or the best technique and activities to improve students' reading skill. So let's move to the next slide. Here is the technique and activities for reading skill. The first one is Learning Center. What is Learning Center? So in Learning Center, we are focused to the learners. We provide a technique or activities that we believe it will help for students to make them easier to learn reading. So in Learning Center, guru memberikan aktivitas yang sesuai dengan siswanya. Jadi sebelum kita memberikan aktivitas pada siswa atau memberikan tugas atau memberi acuan pada mereka harus seperti apa, kita lihat dulu bagaimana siswanya. Apakah kita cocok memberikan dia individual test atau mereka bekerja sama in pairs, or they will make a small group and discuss about reading text. So it was Learning Center. Jadi kita fokus kepada siswanya bagusnya pakai apa. Apakah mereka bagusnya seperti ini, dibuat bergrup atau bekerja sendiri. Terserah siswanya, tergantung kemampuan siswa di kelas itu. Kemudian, the next is graphic organizer. What is graphic organizer? So students will make a graphic about words, and the students will divide the word by their berdasarkan kesamaannya. Jadi misalnya ini adalah word untuk hewan, kemudian ini adalah word untuk buah, kemudian untuk kata kerja, kata sifat, kemudian dibuat grafiknya. Itu yang disebut dengan graphic organizer. Dengan graphic organizer, siswa dapat memperbanyak vocabulary mereka sehingga mereka bisa memahami teks lebih cepat karena vocabulary-nya sudah terlatih di graphic organizer. Kemudian the last one is questioning. What is questioning? So in questioning, there will be a question and there will an answer. So teacher will give students a text, then students will make a question related to the text before they read them. So di questioning ini siswa itu nanti diberi misalnya dikasih gambar gitu kan. Terus dibikin pertanyaan sesuai gambar atau sesuai teksnya. Misalnya what, where, who, how. Pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang seperti itu sehingga nanti dicari dari pertanyaan tersebut jawabannya, mencarinya di dalam teks tersebut. Jadi siswa tidak perlu membaca keseluruhan teks tetapi mencari jawaban dari pertanyaan yang sudah mereka buat sebelumnya. I think that's all from me. I will give it back to my friend. From group 1 and group 2. Okay, I will try to answer the question from group 1 and group 2. So the first question is from group 1. What is the most interesting teaching techniques to improve students' reading skill and what teachers shouldn't do when they teach reading skills? So I personally think that the best or the most interesting technique is graphic categorize because I think it's more fun to use or to apply in classroom rather than we just read the whole text and we get boring. I think graphic categorize is a simple way to read a text, or it's a simple way to enrich vocabulary and to improve students' reading skill. Then for the next is what a teacher shouldn't do when they teach reading skill. So I think a condition or an atmosphere in the classroom is very important to 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 give motivation in reading to the students. Jadi menurut saya yang paling penting itu adalah atmosfer atau suasana di kelas. Jadi usahakan si guru itu jangan membuat suasana kelas itu jadi membosankan atau jadi lebih banyak pressure. Di kelas itu harus, menurut saya pribadi, kelas reading itu harusnya lebih santai karena saat membaca itu paling penting adalah suasananya. Kalau kita udah bete duluan sebelum membaca, itu akan susah menangkap informasi dari teks yang dikasih oleh guru. Atau kita ingin memahami materi, itu akan susah kalau kita membacanya di suasana yang tidak mendukung. Jadi, seorang guru harus bisa membuat atmosfer di kelas itu lebih mendukung dan lebih nyaman untuk kelas reading. Then move to the next question from group 2. Is it mentioned in the book that language experience approach is considered as technique more than approach? Can you tell why it is that way? Untuk menjawab pertanyaan ini kita harus tahu dulu approach sama teknik. Approach itu pendekatan. Nah, pendekatan itu lebih kepada strategi atau rencana. Nah, kalau teknik ini di sini adalah pengaplikasian strategi yang kita buat tadi. Artinya apa yang terjadi di kelas. Kenapa? Jadi kenapa language experience tadi disebut teknik daripada approach, walaupun namanya approach, karena di sini dari namanya saja kan udah kelihatan language experience. Jadi di sini kegiatannya siswa itu dia bercerita dulu mengenai pengalamannya, terus baru nanti ceritanya dibuat menjadi tulisan, sehingga tulisan tersebut akan dibaca oleh siswa yang lainnya atau siswa itu sendiri. Maka dari itu kenapa disebut teknik, karena dia itu lebih kepada pengaplikasian cerita si murid tadi juga. Seperti itu. Mungkin itu saja dari saya. Apabila ada kurang, mohon dimaafkan. Saya lanjutkan ke teman saya.
So I would answer the question number 3. In teaching children, can extensive reading become one of the methods that able to catch reading interest for children? In my opinion, I would say that it can. Excessive reading can be one of the methods that able to catch reading interest for children or young learners, because dari pengertiannya, extensive reading is any reading that is done either for pleasure or not explicitly for the purposes of teaching reading. Singkatnya, extensive reading itu adalah kegiatan di mana reading with pleasure. Jadi, teacher can use this method to catch reading interest for children. For example, teacher will ask students to read short stories. For young learners, in my opinion, teacher cannot use the reading materials like novel because that would be too hard for young learners. So, teacher can use short story. Why short story? Because short story are a rich source of language. Short story contains a variety of themes and topics which can be interesting and relevant to the student themselves. So it will be catch their interest for learning reading skills. Short story also can be improve the young learners vocabulary skills. So yeah, extensive reading can be method that able to catch reading interest for young learners. So that's it from me. Next question will be answered by Dina.
Alright everyone, moving on to the next questions from group 5 and group 6. So I think I will kind of connect the answers from these two questions because I think they are kind of related. So the question from group 5 is, what are the obstacles in teaching reading for young learners and how to overcome it? And group 6, on how to deal with students whose interest in reading and it caused their reading comprehension fall behind other students in the class. So those are the two questions and I will answer them correlatingly. So the first question I'm going to answer is the obstacles of teaching reading. There are a lot here and I don't think I can explain all of them. So I think I'm just going to mention them. So here it's written that the problems include literacy in general, worthless vocabulary, difficult vocabulary terms, academic vocabulary, complexity of grammar, inappropriate text, complexity of academic text, reading habits and culture, lack of schematic, lack of motivation to read, and insufficient preparation in teaching reading. And I think that's from the teacher's side of obstacle, but also students can face obstacles as well in reading. For example, having reading disorder. Here I found reading disorder is a learning disorder that involves significant impairment of reading accuracy, speed, or comprehension. So not only the teacher have obstacles, students have it too. And it correlates to the next question. So the next question is, what do we do when we see a student that has fallen behind from their classmates or peers? So as I said before, there are some obstacles in teaching reading, and some of them are from the teacher and some of them are from the students. And the example from the last question is the student's obstacle, like they fall behind and they lose interest in reading, and that is also an obstacle. So how do we overcome it? How do we overcome the students who fall behind or having obstacles or us having obstacle? So I think I will answer in generally. If it's overcoming teaching reading, firstly, obviously, as teachers, we have to know why we teach reading and the techniques of teaching reading. And if it's the obstacles from the students, like maybe they lose motivation, they have some reading problems. From what I learned in Belajaran Pembelajaran class, is that we have to understand like the core of their problem, like why do they lose interest in reading. We have to know that to eventually tackle that problem properly. So we don't just know from the surface like, oh, you lose interest in reading, you're lazy. We're not supposed to jump into conclusion. Instead, we have to really dig down what the problem is to solve that problem. Same with the obstacle in reading. Like why, for example, why do we lack in teaching reading for these young learners? Like we have to know the core of why we lack in it, and then we have to learn about it and make ourselves better. With those two last questions answered, that means this is the end of the presentation of group 4. Thank you so much for your attention. We like to say sorry if you have said something wrong, and we know very well that this presentation is obviously far than perfect because we are still learning. Thank you so much again for watching. I hope you have a great day and learn something from our presentation. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.